We're glad. As the global financial landscape continues to evolve, the importance of robust and standardized valuation practices has become increasingly paramount. A dynamic and rapidly growing economy like Nigeria is no exception to this trend, as industry leaders, policymakers, and practitioners grapple with the complexities of aligning their financial reporting and investment strategies with latest international valuation standards. Perhaps this is the reason stakeholders in the sector will gather at this year's Valuation Summit 2024 to exchange ideas on practical solutions in line with the current practices. Well, for more insights ahead of this conference, I'm being joined by a strategic advisor at Valuation Co., Mr. Lanre Olutimilehin. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. Yes. Let me start that. Can you give us an overview of what the Valuation Conference 2024 is all about?
Yes, so the Valuation Conference is a partnership between Olutimilehin Company and Business Day. Olutimilehin Company is a real estate services firm, an estate surveyor and valuer that has been in practice for over 40 years. And as we have grown and as we have grown, we are looking to establish thought leadership in various parts of our service offerings, including valuation. So that is what birthed the idea of having this valuation summit. And we are looking at how we put valuation in the spotlight, especially in light of recent events, macroeconomic-wise, things that have affected listed firms, companies that we are seeing every day, and the stated objectives of the current administration.
Let's move on now very quickly and see what inspired this team, decoding valuation standards. I read through this back and back again, implication for the financial reporting and investment. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, when we were casting around for a theme for this event, we considered the administration's plan to make Nigeria a $1 trillion economy in 10 years. Now, to do that, you need international investment, definitely. You also need to mobilize local investment. But in order to make sure that that happens, you also need very clear...
Sorry, I beg your pardon, I need to interject you. We have some live feeds that will continue our conversation. That won't affect us. Or the official flag off of the groundbreaking ceremony project in the FCT. Yes, that's by the FCT minister himself, Yasin Wike. Construction of Madubushi and cargo bus terminals. Groundbreaking ceremony of the Abuja division of the Appeal Court and reconstruction of the Kwata Yebu Road in Kwali Area Council. All aimed All right, then, yes, we are back here now. Well, let's continue our conversation. Sorry, I had to interject you. So you're talking about the theme.
Yes, so we are looking at growing to a $1 trillion economy.
Yeah, that's
In order for the country to do that, you need to mobilize international and local capital. And in order to ensure that the right investment decisions are made, we need to have very clear, accurate, transparent financial reporting. And valuation is a critical part of that because every firm has, I mean, there are different types of firms, but every firm has tangible assets of some sort, whether it's real estate, whether it's plants and machinery for the manufacturers. So accurate valuation of these assets and how they are input into financial reports is critical for any investor looking to make an investment decision. Inadequate, inappropriate valuations create risk, and so it is important that standards are adhered to. And standards are about disclosure, standards about how things are reported, and what we wanted to do was to start to try to ensure that users of valuations, and the users of valuations are companies themselves, because they commission valuation firms in Nigeria to put these reports together, understand what they're getting, understand the expectation, and that they understand the standards that regulators need valuers to adhere to, so that when they include it in their reporting, it's right, it's proper, it's credible, and well put together.
That sounds really good. But let's now look at key speakers and, of course, panelists expected at this event.
Yeah. So we have an excellent lineup of speakers for the event, internationally and in Nigeria domestic. We have Mr. Chris Thorne, who is the CEO of a company called Valuology, which is a UK-based valuation advisory firm, and he's a former chairman of the International Valuation Standards Board. We have Mr. Ben Elder. Mr. Ben Elder is the Global Director of Valuation for the RICS, which is the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. And the RICS is kind of like the mother institution for valuation regulators across the country. Coming back to Nigeria, we have Mr. Odun Ayo-Ojo, who is the CEO of UPDC PLC, which is obviously one of the biggest real estate companies in Nigeria. We have Mr. Silvanus Eneche, who is the Chief Risk Officer for Wema Bank PLC. We have Ms. Uloma Ijema. She's a partner at PwC, an auditor. I mean, obviously, with financial reporting, you need your auditors. We have Mr. Jamiu Olakison, who is a partner and assurance leader at EY. And we have Mr. Olamide Obajimi, who is a partner at Olaniwa Ajayi LP. So we have a very rich mix of speakers from whom participants will get a lot.
Interesting. Let's look at some latest trends now. Even as I look at who are your target audience, what are some latest trends in business valuation, and would they be discussed at this summit?
Yeah, absolutely. So for asset valuation, I mean, business valuation is a part of the valuation that valuers in Nigeria do. But we're looking at asset valuation here. And some of the trends that we're seeing, you know, from a valuation perspective and from a financial reporting perspective is on sustainability. Everyone is talking about sustainability now, and how ESG factors, environmental, social, and governance factors are incorporated within valuations, and how they are reported in financial reports is increasingly important. I'll say that the other trend is the role of technology in valuation. Yeah. So the use of big data, machine learning, and how that feeds into automated valuation models, the use of GIS, drone technology, how all those feed in. And I'd say also more topical is also the impact of the recent devaluations of the currency and, you know, inflation, what impact those have had on valuations of assets. Yeah, so there's a lot for us to chew on.
It's really a lot. Yeah. And I would follow where. Can you explain the significance of valuation standards in financial reporting and investments? So
when you put a valuation, I mean, like I said earlier, inappropriate valuations create risk.
Yeah.
And what it would mean is that you have a balance sheet that does not properly reflect what it's telling you. And the reality is that, you know, internationally there have been accounting scandals where a lot of wealth has been destroyed because of this. So, I mean, globally we know of Enron. I mean, everyone remembers Enron. Everyone remembers WorldCom. I mean, that was earlier, around 2001. But when we bring it locally as well, I mean, imagine for a financial institution or a lender, I mean, if the balance sheet does not properly reflect the value of the assets, you can end up having a very bad situation very quickly. So having clear standards in how valuation is done and then how it is reported in the financial statements, it leads to credibility, it leads to transparency, accountability, and it allows people to make the right decisions for themselves, when they choose whether or not to make an investment in a company or a firm.
All right, let's look at attendees now. How can they benefit from these interactive sessions at the summit?
So it's, the format is in the form of keynote presentations as well as panels, but there are going to be opportunities to interact. We're going to have Olutimilehin and company there on hand to answer any questions or direct any questions that may come up to the speakers. There's going to be breaks in between as well where there'll be a networking opportunity. Okay. So, those are the opportunities that there will be to network, to learn a bit more.
How do you also ensure that the content presented at the summit are relevant and, of course, up to date? That's very key.
Yeah, I think that, thankfully, the work is kind of done for us in that respect. Like I said, the themes that we're looking at, things like sustainability, how that impacts valuation, technology, and the most important one, which is really, look, there have been devaluations, and that's had a marked effect on company balance sheets. It's made certain companies try to figure out if they have the correct valuations for the assets they own on their balance sheet. So, effectively, everything that's happening right now is helping us drive, and it's very topical. It's very easy to pick the topics.
What role do now regulatory bodies or updates play in business valuation, and how would they be addressed at this summit?
Yeah, so we are going to have an address by the Executive Secretary of the Financial Reporting Council, Dr. Rabiolo. He will be there. The FRC also has a Directorate of Valuation. Okay. So that's been, that's something that's been set up with the regulators for the valuation of estate surveyors and valuers in Nigeria. And so we expect them to talk a bit more about that. Other regulators, obviously, they're the regulators for estate surveyors and valuers. We're expecting a lot of valuers to be in attendance. Other regulators that, this is important for are the Securities and Exchange Commission, to do valuation for any SEC-registered entity or fund or REIT, for instance. You must be registered with the SEC. So they want to know that, they understand that valuations are critical. So, that's the interaction we expect to have at the summit.
Let's now look at success stories before now, notable outcomes of previous valuation summits.
This is our first valuation summit.
We
hope that it will be successful and that it will be the first of many.
Then you now have the story to tell.
Then I'll be able to answer your question.
How can interested professionals register for these events? And what is the selection process for your invitation?
So like I said, I'll take the second question first. Okay, we are looking at the users and providers. So users of valuation reports are companies, especially listed companies that need to obviously they need to report and they need to put financial statements together annually. The auditors that audit, the external auditors that audit them, financial institutions, lenders who rely on valuation reports from valuers. So those are the users. And then, they are the priority because we want them to understand the product that valuers like Olutimilehin and company and other valuers within Nigeria, other properly registered valuers within Nigeria are giving them. In terms of how to register, you can go online to the handles of Business Day Nigeria. I think it's pinned right at the top of their social media handles. Okay. So you can go and you can get more information there or on our website at Olutimilehin and company.
So can you give us an overview of expected impact of this summit, of course, on attendees and the broader industry?
So what I expect and what we as a firm are expecting would happen is for users and when I say users again, it's the listed firms, the finance departments, the auditors, to understand, what is needed. So, what kind of person should be doing your valuation? Are they properly registered? What kind of disclosures should be made when a valuer gives you a report? What are the bases of valuation? Why, you have a need. Either you want to value for insurance purposes, or you need financing, or you're valuing for a sale. So are you looking at, fair value or market value? So we are hoping that all these things will be addressed and that users of the product would understand exactly what they are getting and what kind of questions they need to be asking providers or valuers like Valuation Company and other valuers.
So are there follow-up activities or resources available to participants after the summit?
Well, we're thinking about that now. We're hoping, this is a broad summit, but we, first of many, we hope, but we are looking at training sessions as well. So it's a bit smaller, a bit more specialized, where users or valuers themselves can come learn in a bit more detail what the standards are and what is expected from valuers.
That's a good way to live. A strategic advisor at Olutimilehin and co, Mr. Lanre Olutimilehin. Thank you for giving insights to this nice conversation, I must say.
Thank you for having me.